Hey everybody, welcome to Bird Brain 66. You've got your host here, Brian Bretch on my left or my right, somewhere there in cyberspace, and you got myself, Andy T, here in the other half of that cyberspace. No guest this week, but we do have the fabulous 1983 Topps set to go over. The year after the Cardinals won the World Series. Now, the reason we wanted to look at this set is because it actually features more of the Cardinals that were on the World Series team during that year than the 82 set does, but we will get to the 82 set later. So, Brian, what can you tell us about the 1983 Topps set?
One of the large sets again, 792 cards overall in the entire set. 35 Cardinals, and then was another year of them doing the traded set for people like Jamie Quirk and Neil Allen, who were traded after the 82 season. And there's 132 overall traded cards and just those two Cardinals in that set. I've always liked the look and feel of this set because I showed George Hendrick here at the top with it's kind of got that look of 1963 with a little circle there with a second closer shot of the player. Good info on the back, but for us, lots of memories because this is really the first World Series that really meant a lot to us. Of course, we were around for 67 and 68, way too young to even know what was going
Right,
on.
right.
What are
And
you,
we went through the whole process of the playoffs and everything for the first time with the Cardinals that year. And introduced us to one of my favorite players to play for the Cardinals, Mr. Willie McGee. So you see he's got his rookie card that year. And I also decided to pull this card out because just so people know that there was another set going on at the same time, the OPC set. So basically the same set, a few things in French on the back, but basically the same card. So Topps and OPC were going at the same time. Sometimes it's hard to find those OPC cards in good condition or even halfway decent condition. So sometimes they're a little bit more expensive than the regular common cards, but those are also available out there for those who collect. Just wanted to point that out to folks. And you did mention the fabulous Neil Allen. Didn't really have anything against Mr. Allen during the that time frame, other than the fact that we traded a fabulous first baseman for him. So that is always a point of contention, you know. So
that goes down as one of the Cardinal bad trades, of course.
it does, and so we might as well going to do that. We're going to line them up. There they are. There's Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Neil Allen. And one thing you notice on the back of the traded cards, they are lighter in color. They're white as compared to the, I guess you would call orange grayish
Mm-hmm.
color on the back of the regular issue from those years. But once again, we lost one of our childhood heroes there, Mr. Hernandez, who went to the Mets for Neil Allen. And what was the other individual's name? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Is it Rick Owenby?
Rick Owenby. There you go. So
He doesn't come along with the card until a little bit later on, I think, like 1984 or something like that. But yeah, interesting trade. Speaking of the OPG, go back and look because that's one thing. And thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to look. So when OPG first started, when Top started making those, like in the 60s, they didn't mirror the entire set, meaning that like in 1964, there may have been 22 Cardinal cards. I'm just saying that number off the top of my head, but only like 10 OPGs. I'm trying to remember. I think 81, 82 is when they finally started doing the full run of the same team. So again, to Andy's point, this is much harder to obtain and depending on the year, depending on what rookies are in those sets, quite a bit more expensive too. So
one of the interesting things about this particular 83 set, normally you see on an OPG card a guy that came over from another team in his previous uniform. And this year there was not a card like that because it would say traded on this date or whatever. But that did not happen in the 83 set. And also,
and yeah, 82 was probably the last one because the OPG of Ozzie Smith, to Andy's point, is in his San Diego Padres uniform, and then it says traded to the Cardinals in like the upper left-hand
I
corner.
think they did that with Tudor in '85, I believe, if I remember correctly. But we'll get to that down the road.
Right.
But another thing that happened during the '83 season, we released a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Hot. As everybody knows or should know, he just recently went into the Hall of Fame. Great Cardinal, most Gold Gloves of any pitcher.
And I love these cards too, the Super Veterans cards. Why I didn't pull that one, but I pulled this one because here's Simba in his Cardinal uniform because he's obviously was not a member of the '82 Cardinal team. We traded him to the Brewers in a three-team swap, and we ended up getting Daryl Porter. But love that one. And here's the other one. Obviously, probably the worst trade of all times.
And what happened in 1983 to the Cardinals with Mr. Carlton? Can you tell us?
Is that was the one that's supposed to be the real painful story for me because if I recall, if it was either 83 or 85. I now all of a sudden my brain is telling me it might have been 85. But anyway, long story short,
It was '83. Don't worry, you are correct.
Right, Steve Carlton win number 300 against the
Correct.
Cardinals.
Yes. Yep.
And my dad and I had tickets to that game, and I can't remember what happened. Either he ended up working late, or that's right about the time I started at the sports department at the News Democrat, and there was a scheduling snafu, and I could not trade. So neither one of us went to the game, and then neither one of us had the opportunity to pay attention to it, and then found out that he won his 300th game, and we were both torqued because I would have loved to have witnessed that with my dad, and the circumstances it just didn't allow it. So yeah, that's been a bitter pill for me to
Another, it's
swallow.
probably more bitter too because Carlton was another one of those players that was greatly liked by the fans, but was dismissed by the ownership back in the day. So not only that, did they finished in a dismal fourth place in the National League East that year. Yes, National League East, that is correct. So they were in the Eastern Division back in the day when we had the different alignment of the both of the leagues. But
that's one of their chief rivals.
Yep. Another cool thing that I liked is we had the firemen, there we go. There's Bruce Sutter and Dan Quisenberry. Unfortunately, both deceased now.
Mm-hmm. And Quiz actually pitched for the Cardinals for a while.
He did, yeah. He came along years later and would be the Cardinal closer. So very, very interesting players in this set, because of the super veterans and some of the things that happened from going from '82 to '83. I mean, it brings a lot of memories back because I do remember that we actually bought boxes of these cards from a vendor down on Douglas Street in Belleville, Illinois.
That's right.
$1 a box for 36 packs. So you got a buttload of cards for, I guess it was $10 is a lot of money back then for us. I don't know what that equate to today. I don't know. It's $70 or so, whatever that happens to be.
That was one very large yard that we had to cut in order to make that $10.
Yeah. So one of the unsung heroes from that '82 season, I always like to point this cat out, Mr. Glenn Brummer.
Stealing home.
Yep, stealing home in '82. That was something you won't forget. Kind of an interesting, I don't know, interesting picture in this. I don't think I've seen another player on any card that was kind of crouched down and looks like they're just playing catch more than anything. That's so. Just thought that was an interesting photo. So a lot of cool photos in this one. Some action shots, some pose shots, just a lot of different things. And here, one of the we had a lot of great players back in the day.
Absolutely. Well, here's something that I was going to point out, and then I'll let you pull one out. I got to take it out of the penny sleeve here for a second. So, we all, each one of us have just an absolute ton of Ozzie Smith cards, but somebody pointed this out to me the other day on our Twitter handle. Do you realize that the vast majority of Ozzie Smith cards are of him hitting, and how much cooler it would be to see Ozzie actually making some plays at short, and it got me to thinking. I was like, that is absolutely correct. It is amazing how many things we have of Ozzie bunting the ball or, just posed with the bat. I mean, he was way,
Yeah.
no, more known, and that's when he, obviously after that World Series, he was the first player first shortstop to sign $1 million contract per season. He signed a three-year deal, so he became the first $1 million shortstop. And if I'm right, I think the first $1 million player per season. And I think someone there shortly thereafter, like a week or two later, was signed to something a little bit larger to take over that, making the most money in a season. But I remember people going, is Ozzy really worth $1 million per season?
The answer is yes. He
Yes.
was. So
Was it?
brings me to this character right here, Mr. Herzog. So without him, we wouldn't have had Ozzy. We wouldn't, he made a lot of, I guess you could say, popular and unpopular changes to the teams at the same time. Because before the World Series year, we lost Simba. Then we lose Templeton. That a lot of people are kind of divided on Gary Templeton, but he's great shortstop during his time. Nice hitter, nice hitter for the Cardinals, and then Hernandez.
First, yeah, first player. Templeton was the first player to get 100 hits from both sides of the plate because he was a switch hitter, and a lot of people may not remember that at the time. Andy's point was that um, Whitey Herzog convinced Gussie Busch to be not only the manager but the GM as well, to orchestrate the kind of team that he wanted. And yeah, he did. He was looking for speed, speed, speed in that cavernous Busch Stadium too.
Here's another interesting individual from the '82 World Series team.
Yep. Well, so you keep him up, and then we'll turn this into a positive here in just a second. But I got to be Mr. Downer here for a second. So you've shown a couple of players. Unfortunately, from that '82 team, there's 5 players who are no longer with us. Joaquin being one of them. There are 3 pitchers, so it's Joaquin. You showed the fireman photo. Rest his soul. Yeah, you've already showed Andujar, but there he is in my collection. We unfortunately lost Bob Forsch, Mr. Double No Hitter, 2 different no hitters. David Green and Daryl Porter Waite. Yeah, the Colonial Bred MVP, but also the MVP of the National League Championship Series as well. Just came to life and was unstoppable at the plate, and just was incredible. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. It's sad that it's been, 40 years, and we've already lost 5 players.
Yeah,
Crazy.
but
And
now we're looking forward. Now we're 40 years later, and I'm looking forward to Series 1 coming out in a little bit. So I'm very excited about that because I think they're going to go with something of a similar design for the 23 set, from what I understand. So very excited to see that moving forward.
well, you showed a couple of people. One of my all-time favorite Cardinals. I have him in the penny sleeve. Is Skates. I often think that he was overrated. I mean, excuse me, not overrated, underrated. I mean, he did a bunch of stuff for the Phillies. He did a bunch of stuff for the Cardinals. I mean, I know that he had the speed. Sometimes it would be an adventure in the outfield. That's why they called him Skates. But I think he was one of the unsung leaders. There's another good one.
Yep.
Love Tommy Herr. Big time fan favorite too.
Oh yeah. I don't know, something interesting. It's kind of a interesting photo too. I don't. It just catches my eye because it's not. It's a lot different than we normally see out of some of the photos back in the day. It's not as polished of a photo, I guess you could say.
Right. Yeah.
Same with Oberfell. He's kind of in a weird angle of his swing during that particular photo.
Yep. And interesting about, again, obviously he's the local guy, Collinsville, Maryville, Troy, and super nice guy. I met him once, interviewed him once when he was in the minor league system as a manager. I think it was for the Braves, if I recall. It's either the Braves or the Pirates, but really, really nice guy. And was always great to the fans for being for being one of the local guys. But what are your memories, Andy, of going to the World Series and or just listening to the games?
I just think the excitement of us going to the World Series after watching those things on TV for so many years as a kid. So, and hearing things from my dad or my grandfather about the Cardinal team. Obviously, because the '67 team was like for my dad was a big deal with Cepeda and Maris and all the guys that they had. Obviously Gibson. Because they can name that everybody the names that everybody knows: Gibson and Brock and Carlton. But looking back, that was kind of our, as youngsters, that the '82 was kind of our first experience watching our hometown team win the World Series. So we've been fortunate. We've had three that we can remember.
Right.
We will get to another one sooner than later.
Mhm. Yeah, because we've had our definitely our heartache, so we won't even talk about that. It was interesting. I remember my dad coming home the day before game one, and he said a coworker of his knew how much of a Cardinal fan I was, and so she um, allowed us to take her season tickets. Something came up and she couldn't go, and I remember my dad said, "This is going to be outrageous for this, but we're going to have to pay $25 a piece for a ticket." And this is after paying couple of bucks, maybe what was it, like $1.50 maybe to sit in the bleachers.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cheap back in the day.
And you'll remember this because you got to sit in those same seats the next year on camera day with my aunt and my uncle, or maybe it was four tickets, and we got two of them, and maybe we went with his coworker and her boyfriend. But anyway, long story short is Andy will remember this. The tickets were actually on the third base line, and we could put our feet literally on the dugout just to stretch our legs out. Of course, it was the Brewers dugout at the time. And yes, the Brewers were in the American League at one time and not in the National League, and the Cardinals' chief rival right now. But anyway, it was just a great experience. I remember buying a T-shirt. I remember the Cardinals losing, which was not fun. In fact, they were shut out, but just great memories. And where were you? Do you remember where you were when Suter struck out Gorman Thomas?
Yeah, sitting in my parents' living room back. I guess that was my house too back in the day. So yeah, I was planted firmly in the living room in front of the TV watching all the games. So, and as usual, never having the sound on because everything was broadcast over KMOX as well on the radio with Jack Buck and Mike Shannon. So that's normally how I always heard any ball game. Never had any audio on the television. Always came through the radio. And that's a very popular thing to do in the Midwest back in the day.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you, who covered the game,
No,
the network, who the announcers were. I mean, I know who some of those famous folks were, but again, it just depended on what network it was on. But I was the same way.
yep,
I was sitting in my parents' living room where I lived, from my house too, I guess. But just after the strikeout of Thomas, just jumping up and down and going, "Oh my God, I experience a World Series victory," and more importantly, able to understand that and how cool it was, and then to go to because we were in high school then, go to school, and you and I immediately talking. We probably talked to one another on the phone afterwards. I don't remember that part, but everybody comes in their Cardinal red the next day, and it was just such
yep.
an awesome feeling.
So, well, you want to wrap this up? You want me to wrap this up?
Sure, I'll go ahead and wrap us up. And one of these days, we're going to get smart. We're going to have a card. We keep talking about it. And then I thought about it right before we started recording, is that I want to steal Tony Schaefer's idea. But we do have some exciting news. I'll start with that starting on January 1st of this year, we have launched an Instagram account, and it actually, it's different than Facebook and Twitter. it's a different card and trying to keep it to about 15 to 20 seconds on the recording, whereas the Twitter and the Facebook, if you follow us, a lot more information about the set itself, maybe some history of the player, maybe a big trade. So anyway, that's where we're at. So here goes the close. We are on Twitter at BirdBrain66, Facebook BirdBrain66. Same thing with Instagram, BirdBrain66. Here we are on YouTube, BirdBrain66. So we appreciate that.
Maybe
And
we'll just put that on some kind of banner in the future so we don't have to keep saying it all the time.
yep, that is true. But I'll turn it over to Andy as I close and say thank you, everybody, for watching. And Andy, you can share our almost finally, we've been talking about it for a while, but how close we are with some good news.
Well, we should be actually should be able to see this video on our website, hopefully when this thing is launched. So if not, it's coming very soon, but hopefully you will be watching this off the website, off the YouTube channel, or wherever you watch it from. So everybody, thanks again. Appreciate it and enjoy sharing our memories, thoughts, and just talking about baseball cards and baseball and players and whatever. And just enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Out.
Yep. Yep.